I know.
Are we ready to go? Okay. Good evening, everyone. Welcome to this meeting of the Board of Education. This meeting is being televised live on AACPS TV and streamed on AACPS YouTube channel. General information and protocols for the meeting are posted on the sign by the doorway as you enter the room, so please make sure you read those if you have not already. Please, everyone, pause for the invocation. O God, we pray to administer that which is just in all educational policies, being ever mindful of your guidance. Stir us to action with love, wisdom, and understanding. Everyone, please stand for the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and
to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. That brings us to item 2.03, approval of the minutes. Do I have a motion?
Madam President, I make a motion to approve the minutes as written.
I'll second that.
Do I have consensus? Thank you. Item 2.04, establish agenda order. Do I have a motion?
Move to adopt agenda as written.
Do I have consensus? Okay, thank you. Item 2.05, recognitions. I'd like to take a moment to read a few words tonight. I want to take a moment to recognize the loss of someone who is incredibly important to our school system and to the numerous iterations of this Board of Education over many years, Molly Connolly, who passed away on Wednesday, November 2nd, 2022. Like many people who became involved who become involved in our school system, Molly Connolly began her AACPS career as a parent volunteer. Then in 1998, she began working as a substitute teacher at Severna Park Middle School, where both of her sons attended. In 2001, she got a tip from a friend about an available position at central office working for the executive assistant to the Board of Education. 2 years later, she took over for that person, and she superbly served as executive assistant to the board for 15 years before retiring in 2019. Molly brought an amazing organizational ability to the board. In addition to scheduling an untold number of meetings for the board, she helped members, some of whom still sit on this dais, get information they wanted, get the materials they needed to make decisions, and get to the events in which they needed to participate. The historical knowledge Molly brought to the board office was unmatched. She had the memory of an elephant and could often give comprehensive recollections of prior board meetings or board events, some of which had happened years before. She was well respected and admired for her work ethic and for her mentoring abilities. Perhaps most importantly, as staff who worked with her for years can attest, Molly was just one of the nicest people you'd ever meet. If you worked with Molly, you had more than a colleague, you had a friend. On behalf of board members past and present, and of those who had the pleasure to work with Molly, we extend our deepest sympathies to her husband, Tim, and her sons, Tim and Patrick. Please join me now in a moment of silence in memory of Molly Conley. Thank you. So, moving on now to item 3, public comments. We have no public comment tonight. Thank you. Did I miss something? Oh, yes. I'm sorry. I meant to welcome the Boy Scout troop from Severna Park, Troop 993. Welcome, everyone, and thank you for being here. Thank you, Diane. We hope you enjoy the meeting. We'll try to be a little bit interesting, okay? Not too interesting, but brief and interesting, yes. So there are no public comments tonight, so we'll move on to section 4. So item 4.01, the CRASC report. Ms. Fidel. Good evening.
Good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board, and Dr. Bedell. My name is Michelle Fidel. I am a freshman at Chesapeake High School. My pronouns are she, her, and I am very grateful to serve as CRASC Secretary of Education. Since our last report in October, CRASC has held 2 executive board meetings and 1 virtual town hall meeting. Our virtual town hall meeting was held on November 2nd, where we discussed CRASC highlights, general updates, and student concerns. CRASC is excited to host the Maryland Association of Student Council Fall Leadership Conference at Lyndale Middle School on Saturday, November 19th from 8:30 to 4 p.m. We are thrilled to have over 620 students, advisors, and special guests, such as Dr. Bedell, in attendance. The November episode of Teen Talk can be viewed on the AACPS YouTube channel. Tune in for valuable insights about the college application process from recent AACPS graduates. The December episode will focus on students who serve and will debut early next month. The Constitution Revisions Committee met on November 1st and November 14th to discuss changes pertaining to the future student member of the board election. Committee members agreed to expanding voting to 15% of each secondary school's enrollment for the next mob election. This step is an effort to eventually have every secondary student vote in SMOB election by 2025. Changes will be ratified by voting delegates in the coming months. The Craft Service Department is supporting a local faith-based organization in Savannah Park called SPAN, which stands for Serving People Across Neighborhood, for their November Service Project of the month. To support their cause and help families in need, the Service Department is hosting a fall/Thanksgiving themed drive. Students have the option to donate snacks and or toiletries. Information was distributed to SGA advisors. Led by Alina Malik, Craft Secretary of Service, students created over 60 greeting cards to be included in the SPAN Thanksgiving baskets. The Student Service Learning Leadership Team is participating in Jingle Bell Walk/Run for their Fall Impact Project to raise awareness for lung and ovarian cancer. This event is being held in Quiet Waters Park on December 3rd, and registration closed on November 30th at 8 p.m. Information can be found on the @ServiceAco Instagram. Let's Talk Justice is finalizing plans to host an upcoming forum titled Homelessness in Anne Arundel County. A variety of panelists from AACPS and community partners will join the discussion, sharing their expertise on homelessness in the county, its effects, and ways students, as well as stakeholders in the county, can make an impact. The panel will be recorded after Thanksgiving break with an air date in early December. Stay tuned for more information. Now, as I am speaking to you right now, CRASC is busy planning sessions for our first virtual General Assembly on December 8th. Upcoming meeting dates can be found on our website and in Brightspace. The November CRASC newsletter is now available on our website, Brightspace, and on our Instagram, @CRASC Online. Finally, we would like to thank all of our AACPS awesome school psychologists as we recently celebrated National School Psychology Week. We would also like to express our appreciation to veterans who currently serve or have served our country. We are grateful for their bravery to protect this country. Now, have a wonderful Thanksgiving break, and I will see you in December for my next CRASC update. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Fidel. So that brings us to item 4.02, the CAC report. Ms. Howard.
I just have to say, it's getting harder and harder to follow her. That excitement is just, it's contagious. Thank you, I love it. But good evening, President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, fellow board members, and Dr. Bedell. For the record, my name is Tanisha Howard, the chair of the Citizen Advisory Committee, also known as the CAC. On behalf of the CAC body, I'm pleased to have this opportunity to share and update the board on our recent regular meeting held on Monday, November 14th. We were honored to have the board vice president, Robert Silkworth, in attendance the entire meeting. Our members enjoyed the engagement, sparking ideas within the subcommittees for future topics of research. As a reminder for the public, the CAC conducts our meetings virtually on the second Monday of every month from 6:45 to 8:45. Our 2022-2023 meeting schedule is currently posted on our AACPS CAC webpage, which is underneath the board tab on the AACPS website. We have 5 remaining meetings for this year, and anyone is welcome to join our upcoming meetings. If interested, a request with just your name and email address can be made to the CAC secretary. This information is also located on our webpage for your convenience. For our public comment at our last meeting, we received input and requests for more information surrounding the upcoming redistricting. Next, our Perspectives and Impact, which launched in 2021 to honor the late Honorable Candace C.W. Antwine, featured a presentation on National Veterans and Military Families Month to recognize and honor our nation's veterans along with their families who courageously serve, sacrificing much with commitment and dedication in defending democracy and freedom here and abroad. We as CAC members can amplify awareness of the existing resources available within and external to AACPS that support our county's military's families. Now, on to the heart of the CAC, our subcommittees. Our breakout sessions included Education Policy Watch, Hate and Bias, Perspectives and Impact Planning, Ready to Read Early Literacy, and Wellness Lens. There were continued conversations, notably on finishing their scope topic, setting goals, developing regular meeting schedules, and assigning tasks to manage engagement. Speaking of subcommittees, on November 17th at 6:30 p.m., the Hate and Bias Committee will be meeting on their scope definitions for hate, intolerance, and bias. And on November 28th at 7 p.m., the Wellness Lens is meeting to start their tenant review of virtual instruction day. In closing, to the board, thank you for your continued support, continued engagement, and continued outreach so we can be most impactful. While every year seems to top the last, our dedicated professionals are letting their passion shine, revving into gear to deliver on the CAC mission. The CAC is honored to be a proud partner of the board in its innovative and proactive leadership. We look forward to continued outreach to our clusters and their participation in providing invaluable input in our work. As always, we welcome and appreciate the board's and the community's feedback to meet the challenges at hand and into the future. Thank you, and may you all have a safe and wonderful Thanksgiving break.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Howard. And the same to you, a very happy Thanksgiving. And as always, thank you to all our CAC members for all the work that they do. Okay, item 4.03, the President's Report. I don't have much to say tonight, except I would like to offer a particular thank you to our faculty and staff in the schools, particularly in the Broadneck clusters and Severna Park, that had to shift very quickly to virtual when we had the sudden closure of the bridge. And I know many people worked incredibly hard to be where they had to be to make sure that the students were getting the instruction that they needed that day. So I just want to send a special thank you for incredible work under very difficult circumstances and decisions that had to be made very quickly at sort of 6 a.m. that day. So thank you, everyone. So that brings us to item 4.04, the Budget Committee Report. Ms. Schulheim.
Yes, the Budget Committee met on Monday, the 14th of November. It was a very brief meeting. We learned more about item 7.04 on the agenda tonight, the Supplemental Capital Budget Appropriation, which is essentially a grant that looks at decarbonizing our public schools. It'll be a sort of holistic look at our schools and what we can do to be more green. I hope that will include my favorite word, solar. But that remains to be determined by the experts, of which I am not one of them. Our next meeting will be next month, where we will delve into the budget amendment process for the upcoming budget cycle, because as we all know, the budget will drop next month, and then after that it'll be in the board's hands to amend as we as a body determine. And so we need to have a process for that and make sure we're all on the same page before that kicks off in earnest after next month. So that's it. Thanks.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Schalheim. Item 4.05, Equity Committee Report. Mr. McGrath, did you have anything to report?
Yes, we moved the equity committee meeting that was going to happen yesterday to January. That's basically all I have to report, but I'm excited for it in January.
Okay, thank you. All right, that brings us to item 5.01, the superintendent's update. Dr. Bedell.
Thank you, Madam President. So I have, I think, a number of fantastic updates that I'm excited to share with everybody. I wanted to start off with two really exciting things. The first of which is our athletic teams. This fall season, AACPS has seen 4,240 high school student athletes participate in our 9 sports. To date, AACPS has won 8 state championships from those sports. Here you will see on this screen some of those teams: Chesapeake and Glen Burnie for cheerleading, Severna Park boys and girls cross country, Broadneck field hockey, Crofton field hockey, Southern and Severna Park unified tennis. And it's not over, because we still have 6 teams still vying for state championships in volleyball, soccer, and football. Those teams are Arundel Volleyball, Crofton Girls Soccer, Severna Park Boys Soccer, and Arundel, Broadneck, and Old Mill Football. So my apologies, because I gave a couple of board members wrong information earlier. I thought we only had Old Mill left in there, but I'm excited that we still have a number of teams competing for state championships. As you all know, we are now moving into our winter sport programs, and I want to wish each and every single one of our teams a great start to their season, which begin this week. We are particularly thankful for our relationships with local pools and bowling alleys that support our swimming and unified bowling programs. We are also very happy to be able to provide our indoor track program with contests at their traditional sites for the first time in 3 years. They are the only program left that has not had a traditional season since COVID-19. So if we could give all of our athletes and all of our coaches and supporters a round of applause for those accomplishments. It's awesome. All right, Meade Community Day. So I want to thank everyone involved in last week's Meade Community Day, celebrating all of the positive things going on in the Meade cluster. I was unable to attend, but I know Ms. Jackson and Dr. McMahon and several board members attended to see a showcase of talents of our students and the strength of our partnerships. The large crowd that attended is indicative of the support for our schools. Thanks to the County Executive's Office, the team at Fort Meade, and the Friends of Meade Action Group for their efforts to truly make #Meade Strong a community mindset. As we move on with the superintendent's update, listening and learning tours, as you see on this screen, I talked about these meetings at our at the last board meeting. These meetings will begin on November 28th at Annapolis High School and run through January 11th. We have added a third Spanish session on December 16th at Brockbridge Elementary School. All of these sessions are open to anyone from any part of our county and will play a big part in the formulation of our strategic plan. So I hope everyone will come out, and it's important that everybody know that we'll send out more communication around the format, but I do want to verbally say to people, the format it's a structured meeting. It's an opportunity for me as the superintendent to come out and introduce myself, kind of help everybody understand some of the body of work that I've engaged in and what I would like to see happen in this school district. But it's also an opportunity for us to allow for the communities to break into small groups to talk about the strengths of the school district. What are the areas that we need improvement in or need to do away with? And what are your aspirations for the future? What do you want to see happen in this school district for the future? So we want to then take all of that data from those 16 listening and learning tours. We'll triangulate that data. We'll figure out what are the emerging themes in all three of those areas that ultimately will help inform us as we begin to close out the entry plan and shape our post-entry plan that will then move us towards the strategic planning process that will happen over the next year. Finally, transportation update. And I will ask our board that if you have any questions, to save them for the van update, that the van action that we're asking you to take in 6.01. But here's what I want to share with everybody. We've been very transparent about our transportation issues that we've been dealing with in this county, at least since I've started July 1. We posted the positions of our vacancies, all of those things. And we also at one point did a presentation where we shared with everyone that we were looking at some alternative ways to provide transportation and to get as many of our students to school safely. So what we have right now are 67 current bus driver vacancies. We have 59 potential drivers currently in training. We are also beginning our discussions on identifying rounds for potential changes at semester break, as we've stated earlier. The number of those changes will be lessened, hopefully by the emergency procurement contract for vans, and I hope that our board will approve later in this meeting. If approved, 24 vans will be used to transport more than 100 non-public students and free up an equal number of buses and CDL drivers. The buses then will be redeployed to general education routes, impacting an estimated 2,600 students who will receive additional bus service. We are still determining the exact routes, but the plan is to address some general and magnet routes in the Annapolis, Broadneck, North County, and Old Mill clusters, and to fix all of the no service issues in the Meade cluster. The new coverage plan to begin with 21 routes on December 5th and 3 more on December 12th. We will be sending initial communication to families of non-public students this week and doing dry runs on the traditional routes over Thanksgiving break. Communications with all impacted families will occur the week of November 28th. This is the next step in an ongoing process to remedy the adverse impacts of the bus driver shortage. Our team is continuing its tireless work in this area, and we won't stop until we are able to safely transport all of our kids in this county. Madam President, that concludes the superintendent's report.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Bedell. Ms. Schulheim, I see your light.
Yeah, I just had a quick question, not about this part, but you said there were 4,000. How many athletes? 4,000?
Yes, I'm sorry. Yes, there were 4,240 high school student athletes that participated in our 9 fall sports.
Fantastic. And I don't expect you to know this off the top of your head, but is that the usual amount ish? Okay. Fantastic. That's a lot. Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Okay. Seeing no more lights.
All right. So we will move on, and we'll have Mr. Mosier to come up and do his presentation on the 2023-2024 school year calendar.
Good evening, Mr. Mosier.
Good evening. President Tobin, Vice President Silkworth, members of the board, Dr. Bedell. I'm Bob Mosier, Chief Communications Officer, here to present the recommended 2023-2024 school year calendar as recommended by our calendar committee. This is an information item this evening, so no board action is required. Board approved policy IB sets out the process we are discussing this evening. It calls for the committee, whose members I will detail in a moment, to submit a recommended calendar to the board for consideration. Ultimately, the final decision on a school year calendar is that of this Board of Education. In a conversation with Dr. Tobin before the committee began its work, it was relayed to me that the board would like to review 2 calendars, one with a pre-Labor Day start and one with a post-Labor Day start. That is what I will present to you this evening. The timeline for this process is as you see here. Following tonight's presentation, we will put the calendars and a video of this agenda item online for the public to review and to offer comment. That comment period will run through December 2nd, and we will provide that input to the board for its consideration as it proceeds with a final adoption of a 2023-24 school year calendar on December 7th. The committee consists of 24 members whose roles include bargaining unit representatives, parents, students, staff members from key areas across our school system. We met on the evening of Monday, November 7th, and I have to tell you, this year's meeting had some of the most robust and interesting and thought-provoking conversation that we have had since I've been facilitating this committee. The committee starts its work with the calendar approved by the board for the current school year and makes changes as it reaches consensus on individual items. The prospective calendar contains the same holidays and breaks that are in this year's schedule. It also contains all of the closings required by state law that you see here. They were and always have been off the table in terms of discussions of potential changes. So before getting to a preference on a pre-Labor Day or post-Labor Day start, the committee had substantive discussion on the items you see here. These factors are important because the calendar should be, as your policy states, a document that supports the effective delivery of an instructional program. So I'd like to talk a little bit about these because, as I said, it was a pretty robust discussion. There was some pretty lengthy discussion about the need for consistency of a date to start the school year. I can tell you in our office, we got lots of calls in early August about we thought school was starting after Labor Day, but it's starting before Labor Day. And that seemed to be the case among schools and parents as well. We talked also a lot about the effectiveness or lack thereof versus the inconvenience of the partial days for parent-teacher conferences. And I'll get to more of that in a minute. And then there was a discussion of something that hasn't come up in a couple of years, but did come up this year about developing a second calendar more than a year in advance. Those of you who've been on the board for a while know that we used to do this as a practice. It would serve as a tentative document, and then the board would come back and formally approve it the next fall. And it has helped in parent planning. The committee also discussed these items: the increased need for professional development for teachers. We have a drastic increase in the number of conditionally certified teachers this year, 32% more than last year. And so particularly our folks in curriculum instruction talked about the need for increased professional development there. And the potential to provide a non-student PD day for elementary and middle school teachers, which I'll go through in a minute. As you know, high schools go 180 days because we close on the day of their graduation. Elementaries and middle schools go 181 days. So that was a discussion we had. And then finally, a discussion that this board had last year about the last work day before the school year, where traditionally before a motion that the board approved last year, would be a non-teacher work day, and custodians would be able to do that last minute stuff. So we had lots of discussion about that. Ultimately, the committee made two key changes. One is to recommend eliminating the 3 partial day parent-teacher conference days. They were deemed relatively ineffective and largely disruptive, both to school operations and to the lives of parents. So that's recommendation 1. Before I get to recommendation 2, there was some significant discussion about the varying ways that are now available for schools to conduct parent-teacher conferences, right? Virtual and other things. We have 2 principals on the committee, and they talked about the ways that their teachers reach out to parents earlier in the school year in ways that are more effective than those days. And the second was to put in that elementary and middle school professional development day, as you see here, and leave high schools in session. The committee left it to staff to figure out what day that was. We landed on November 1st. That is a Wednesday, but when I circulated that back through the committee, the elementary folks in the committee were elated because that, of course, is the day after Halloween, and therefore young trick-or-treaters would not have to get up and go to school. So I offer that for you. With that settled, we turn to the pre and post Labor Day start. Vast majority of people on the committee want the pre-Labor Day start. for reasons that include these. The post-Labor Day start ends too late in the calendar that you have before you. It ends the 24th of June, which should strike you as familiar because that's the day school ended last year. It also, because of the way June falls, would bring students back for 2 half days on the day after Juneteenth. And I don't want to overlook the last bullet, the last 2 bullets, because while we often talk about summer and all that stuff, the June 24th date causes some really big issues for the Office of Student Data in terms of closing out records and closing out grades and those kinds of things. And it really does create some issues there. The pre-Labor Day start also allows for almost all of that staggered start that we have to get out of the way. And so students start, most of them, full days when after Labor Day concludes. I did a quick counting. So if you look at last year, school ended on the 24th of June. And when we started this year, that was a 66-day summer. So if school is scheduled to end on the 16th of June this year, without accounting for any of the virtual days of instruction, right, without any adjustments for weather, if you started pre-Labor Day, it would be 76 days of summer. So I offer that up for you. And then the committee had 2 recommendations. The first one, incredibly strong and unanimous, one of the very few unanimous things that we have on the committee, and that is the consistent date on which to start school from year to year. As I said, there was significant discussion about that, and everyone agreed with that, and agreed with the year ahead process, so allowing the calendar committee to do that. We could certainly do that this year. The plan would be, as we discussed it in the committee, this board would approve a calendar in December. We would then take it and adapt it for next year and bring it back to you at some date over the next couple of months, and you would approve it as a tentative calendar, realizing that you could make changes again next fall. So as I said at the outset, this is the second of 4 steps in this process. And so I'm happy to answer any questions that you have tonight. And then we will see you again on December 7th after we have public comment for that.
Thank you, Mr. Mosier. Just a reminder to members, if there are any series of things to ask. The first round is for questions and the second round is for comments. So Ms. Schalheim, I see your light.
Yes, I have some questions around AP, IB, and then also certification tests, especially as we get into blueprint. Certification tests are important. So about the scheduling of those, are we responsible for scheduling those, or other bodies responsible for scheduling those, and where do they land in the mix of things every year?
Sure. So thank you for the question. Let me take them one by one. So AP is the dates of AP exams are totally out of our control. They are set by the College Board. They are the first 2 full weeks in May. So this year they are May 1st and May 8th. Next year they are May 6th and May 13th. Likewise, IB is out of our control. Those dates are set by the IB office. And they are generally the last part of April or the first week in May and last for approximately 3 weeks. The CTE exams are a mixed bag. Those that are offered by outside agencies, those dates are set by those agencies, so we don't have control over those. The ones that we can offer, I'm told by our CTE office, we schedule those in the quarterly exam window, quarterly assessment window in the 2nd and the 4th marking period, so at the end of each semester.
Thank you. And as a follow-up question to that, the ones that are the CTEs that are out of our, the CTE certifications that are out of our control, are those generally April or May? Do you have a sense of that?
I don't, but I can find out for you.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Appreciate it. That
If-
was all
if-
my
if
questions.
I can just
Yeah.
add to that, and we'll find out about it, but at least during my time of supervising CTE programs, most of those assessments generally don't go into June. They don't go deep into June. They're usually towards the end of May. Maybe you might find something that falls in during the first week of June, but most of those type of assessments like IB, AP, most of them generally are done by the end of May. And I know in my former school district, because we were doing commencements May 17th, 18th, some of our kids who actually had their high school diploma still had to come back the following week to take IB exams because they were going into the later part of the year. And I think what I'm believing we're able to accomplish here is to have all of that done before a kid even has a commencement. I'm hoping so. I think I know where you're going with those questions.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell.
Thank you, President Tobin. I guess my question would be, if I could, it's not a very specific one, but we always go back and forth with the partial days and the whole days off for staff development, and not talking about parent-teacher conferences. That's a whole conversation in and of itself. But would you mind taking a couple minutes and going back over some of the merits of each and a little bit more expansion on your recommendations as it surrounds that?
In terms of professional development for staff?
Yes, as in what's the best interest? What are some of the barriers? Like, are we talking about, days of, of their employment that they're active versus like how we get some of
Right.
these
So our
recommendations?
teachers are contracted to work 191 days. So from the first day before school that they come in to begin setting up their classrooms and that kind of stuff, we count 191 days, right? So the holidays don't count and that type of stuff. So a 2-hour early dismissal would allow you for 3 hours because of the length of their workday of professional development in the afternoon. That's what we do on those Project Unity days, as an example. So what this model would create is a day for elementary and middle school teachers. Curriculum and instruction would tell you that's not enough, to be perfectly honest with you, that they'll take anything they can get, right? I mean, so it would create that day. We probably would not use all of that day for professional development, and there is some research and discussion, and Dr. McMahon and Mrs. Jackson and Dr. Bedell can certainly speak to this way better than I, but that a half a day of more impactful professional development is better than a full day, right, of less. And so what we talked about in the committee, though it wouldn't be our decision, would be on that November 1st day, a half a day of PD for teachers at the elementary and middle school levels, and then teacher workday the other half of the day, right, which would allow teachers to catch up on assessments and those kinds of things.
So as a follow-up to that, as we're planning those out, are the impact, I mean, from my seat as a former parent of recent of the school system, in part is that by always having an early dismissal as opposed to a late start, it impacts some of the academic opportunities of the morning only kids. And as we move closer into preschool environments and that pre-K learning, and it's continue to expand that, what impacts does that have proportionate to these recommendations?
So this recommendation removes 3 of the early dismissals. It doesn't add any more in anywhere. So we're going from 15 partial days to 12.
Okay.
But secondly, all of our pre-K now is full day. So we don't have morning only pre-K anymore or afternoon only pre-K anymore. I believe I have that right, correct?
And that would
And
include.
it's ECI that is morning only, right? And that's a small number of those.
Okay. But some the most impactful, I would argue. But okay, yeah.
But so this recommendation would eliminate 3 of those adversely impactful days that you're discussing.
Okay.
And replace it with that one day where there's no school for anybody. Your other option is you dig into the days that teachers come back before students come back, and there are 6 of those in this calendar. There are 6 in this year's calendar.
Well,
you could look at those, but some of those are. The use of some of those are dictated by the negotiated agreement with the Teachers Association.
correct. And we're already having a desire for more hours, even to the impact of our facilities management. Okay, I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. Seeing no more lights, I think that's it. So we will take this under consideration and we'll be revisiting it for a vote at a later meeting. So thank you, Mr. Mosier, and thanks always to the committee. I know this is a lot of work, and we truly appreciate what they're doing. Thank you. All right, so this takes us to item 6.
Can I motion to bundle all three, knowing that we can still ask questions on any one of those? Can I motion to bundle 6.01 to 6.03, please?
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Motion to bundle.
Robert? Do we need to vote?
Yeah,
or-
I think
Miss-
we need to
Can we
vote.
do
Yes.
consensus?
Ms. Dent?
Oh, okay.
Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Okay, thank you. So, Dr. Bedell.
All right, so on this first item, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of emergency contract number 23E-155, alternative student transportation vans to Chesapeake Charter, First Student, Jubs Bus Service, and the Driven Group LLC in the total amount of $1,884,534.
And we motion to bundle, so if you could
Oh,
just
just
read the
read all three?
recommendations of all
Okay.
three. Thank you.
All right. The second item, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of contract number 23 CN-111, ceiling and lighting replacement at Arundel Middle School to Janus Contractors, Inc. in the amount of $1,862,452. And then the last item, the superintendent recommends that the Board of Education authorize the award of number 23-150, facility maintenance, repair and operations, industrial and building supplies with related equipment, accessories, supplies, and services, a cooperative agreement through Sourcewell contract to West Coast Distribution, Inc. in the amount of $198,045.
Okay, thank you. So, Ms. Schallheim.
Yes, thank you. I have a couple questions about the vans. I want to preface this by saying that I'm very excited about this, but I just have some questions for you. Regarding the insurance needed and the training required by the driver to drive the vans, is that similar? I know they don't have to have a CDL, but is the rest of that, the requirements sort of similar to what a company for a big yellow bus company would have to carry?
Yes, for the record, Matt Stansky, Acting Chief Operating Officer. Yes, Ms. Schallheim. So, right, the drivers of the vans do not have to have a CDL. They just have a standard issued Maryland license, but it has to be in good standing, right? And then, yes, the companies have to provide the necessary insurance and provide that proof similar to what they would for a typical yellow bus.
And of course, so my second question is a yes, no. So there's going to be three, so forgive me. So the second question, which is a yes, no question, is do those drivers have to do the same amount of training that, and not in terms of the licensure, but in terms of what the school system offers, and or PD or and the background checks and all of that stuff?
All of that,
All of
yes.
that's
They'll
the
be
same.
doing dry runs and how to, interact with the students. Because you have to remember too, this is our most vulnerable students, right?
Yes.
They're have severe challenges. That's why they're heading to non-public schools. And so this is a change for them. And so part of that will also include, how to interact with the children and the parents as we make this adjustment from the big yellow bus to the passenger van.
And then I do have four actually. The third one, sorry, they're quick. So the third one is, what about seatbelts and or booster seats for kids that might need them?
Whatever
that
the
good
law
stuff.
requires, that stuff will be there. And soon, and some of the vans will even have lift chairs for students who have wheelchairs and things.
Wonderful. And if the IEP requires an aid, the aid will be on
Absolutely.
the van.
There will be an aid on every bus. And so, yeah, and just to keep in mind, if they're 10 passenger vans, they're really only gonna be able to seat 7 students
Yes.
because the front seat will be left empty. There will be an aid in the back, and then the students along with the
Thank
driver.
you. All quick and easy stuff. That's what I figured. I wanted to get it on the record though publicly. Thank you so much.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Ms. Ellis.
I don't have any questions, just a statement, so I don't know, is now the
Um,
time or
Ms.
are there questions?
Ms. Frank, did you have a question? Okay, I'll let Ms. Frank go and then.
Great, thank you. Just briefly, in your presentation, you mentioned that the long-term December would be 40. So does that mean we're going to have another contract likely coming up for another 14 or so? Or are we looking at 40 more potentially?
So
or?
this is, oh, sorry.
Oh,
No.
sorry.
No.
You remember, yes.
Yeah. So this is, so what you're approving tonight is an emergency procurement that only gets us through the end of the school year. What we will be doing is a larger RFB, that I think released, like I said, in December, and that will come to approval. That will be a multi-school year agreement that will be including more vans. Because they'll give them more lead time for the contractors to procure those vans and those drivers.
Got it. Does that look like 40 more vans?
No,
or
so
does
it'll
it-
be, if we're doing 24 now, it'll be a 16
16, okay.
additional. Plus, we're obviously, as you saw from the slide, looking to start our own in-house fleet as well.
Yes.
With, obviously the hope eventually of really covering all McKinney-Vento and non-public, smaller passenger routes with these vans.
Awesome. Yeah, no, I'm totally supportive. I'm just trying to get an
Yep,
idea of where
absolutely.
we're going with it. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Hey, if I can just tag on, what Mr. Stansky just said is probably one of the more important pieces of, as I've stated several months ago, we have to take a different look at what does a CDL truly mean for us, given the competitiveness that's out there. And if we're able to build our own fleet, that gives us a lot more leverage. When we're able to hire these employees and they're able to work directly through us, we have a lot more control too on where those routes are where we can prioritize routes more so than we can if we have a partner. And I would say that rather than a vendor, because they are partners with us, where they may only service a particular area. So we want to begin to build our own fleet with this, knowing that it is a lot easier to get people that may want to take on this assignment and not have to go through some of the rigors of having to get the CDL. And so we're excited about where I think we're heading. And then over time, I have some thoughts on things that I believe we can do to even have more ownership over our own fate from a transportation standpoint, but that'll be down the line.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell, did you have questions or a statement?
Sort of.
I'm holding Ms. Ellis, and then
Yeah.
I have questions as well. So I just want to make sure we get the questions out first before we
yeah,
go to statements.
I guess it is a question. So as we move forward with, and I apologize because I honestly, it came to me as someone was asking a similar question. So as we move forward to get our fleet of vans, one of the preliminary conversations included trying to reduce isolated routes that are, the kids that are sitting on a bus for an hour and a half, sometimes more, that are in those remote areas. Is that part of the game plan for this year? Because I'm just sort of curious because I'm seeing a lot of other clusters have resolution, and I'm looking at some of our lists for my district, and we have those circumstances that this would benefit, and we have less buses assigned to the area, and we are 5 or 6 weeks from now a lot of kids on a lot of rural routes in the dark. So I don't know if this is relevant to vans or not, and if it's not, I'll table it out. But I'm just kind of wondering because it was tossed up as an idea, but I'm just not seeing it there yet.
Yeah, no, right. And so I think for this year, just to be transparent and frank with you, it will be difficult, right? The vans, the only ones we are able to procure, and the reason the number's 24 is that's all that was available with the vendors that we, engaged with. It was really to address those non-public routes, to free up those buses to really cover routes that just haven't had service. We understand the issue in the long routes, especially in South County. Obviously, that's something we need to address in the long term, and maybe possibly with the addition of additional vans, we can do that. Or with, the 50-some drivers we have in the pipeline right now. But we just do not yet have the capacity to address that issue. I think we had to look at the routes that just haven't had service all year as the priority first.
And I'll say this because you're absolutely right. I went out and I spoke with some of the folks in your community, and I've said that we have to look at how we address those long routes. I think as we get more vans in, that's something we can definitely take a look at. My understanding is they do have transportation, but it's just the amount of time that they have to ride on the bus. Is that the concern?
So we do have outages in some of it. So
Okay.
in some of my areas that are of have some challenges.
Okay.
And so just as we're moving forward with that, I just want to, give my folks an understanding of what they can anticipate, I guess, because we have had those conversations. So that's why I was asking, not to put you all on the spot or anything, but to get that update, because this was part of the equation initially was to try to do that. Obviously, our folks that require the non-public are always our top priority in comparison. And as we roll down, but I did notice that we do have clusters that are of similar profile of some of my communities that are still experiencing some outages and some services. So I was just checking in.
Right. And again, to reiterate, and Dr. Bedell mentioned this at the beginning of his presentation, but if there are routes that have not had service all school year, we will address those at the semester break. And obviously that means a trade-off for somebody else. But obviously, ultimately, the goal is to have every route covered and not have to do the trade-off. But and obviously, we're making strides in that. But we're going to have to continue to work route to route. But if there are routes, no matter which cluster, that have not received service, we will begin to study to get them service at the semester break.
And my routes that are of similar profile that are getting prioritized, it's any of them included, or are they not hitting the mark? Because I look at a poverty map and heck, we're number 2. We're
right. So
we're higher than Annapolis here, and we have Annapolis services.
Right. So the bullet was to kind of give a broad overview. We have not finalized every single route that we're covering. So obviously looking at all of them and before we finalize it right after Thanksgiving.
And then again, the specific concerns, Ms. Sandra can help them out as the Southern specialist, right? If they're having any problems, and they should continue to work with the school.
Correct.
For those dire situations. To see if there's alternatives for them. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to ask a quick question before giving Ms. Ellis an opportunity to make her comment. Just for the public again, can you say a little bit about where the funding for this is coming from?
So obviously, as we have routes that are not serviced, there's essentially liquidated damages that the vendor has to pay us, as well as, we don't pay them for servicing the route. So of course that in the transportation state category accumulates savings. So we are using that savings for this year to fund the emergency procurement. And fair to say, as we, look to the fiscal 24 budget, we'll probably see some line items in transportation to permanently sort of provide funding for this program.
Okay, great, because I just think it's important for folks to understand that we're using the money that essentially has come back to us because of the lack of service. So thank you for that.
Correct. Yep.
Ms. Ellis.
Thank you. I am obviously going to fully support the ceiling and lighting replacement at Arundel Middle School. So I don't want to misconstrue what I'm about to say here, folks, but it's a Band-Aid. I'm very concerned that the more we continue to invest in this school, that it's going to move down on the list of new construction, but that school, it would be a real shame for that to happen. That school is an aging school. Anyone who's walked through the halls into the classrooms knows that those students deserve a wonderful place to learn, just like everyone else. So I do hope that this very critical project does not impact the future plans that should be taking place there. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Corkadell, is that a new light for you? Okay, Ms. Schalheim.
Actually, I have a question for Miss Ellis. Was that the school that we toured with Eric back in the day, and we all thought the lighting was appalling?
Oh,
That was Central Middle. Yeah, that one also needs lighting.
Yeah.
That was
But I-
completed this summer.
Yeah.
The central middle lighting.
Oh, good.
Yes.
Oh, good, because it was rough. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, that was all I had.
Yeah.
Good. So I can imagine that if Arundel Middle is anything like, so then I agree. All right, cheers.
Yeah. Okay, seeing no more lights, I just want to say I'm particularly supportive of the vans. And thank you for taking the initiative, Dr. Bedell and Mr. Stansky, on a very tricky area. Okay, so we need a motion.
Move to approve each of Dr. Bedell's recommendations regarding items 6.01 through 6.03.
Second.
Okay, seeing no more lights, Ms. Howell.
Ms. Dent? Aye. Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Moving to action items, section 7. Item 7.01, administrative personnel appointments. Dr. Bedell.
The superintendent recommends the personnel listed on the attached sheet be promoted and or appointed.
So moved.
Seeing no lights, Ms. Howell.
Ms. Dent? Aye. Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schalheim?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. Item 7.02, we now move to policy revisions, third reading, non-discrimination code AC. Dr. Bedell.
Good evening once again, Bob Mosier, Chief Communications Officer. As you recall, this policy is being amended in accordance with recent changes to state law, which require local boards of education to include the added language in their respective non-discrimination policies. It's on third reading and up for a vote. I'd be happy to try to answer any questions you may have.
Okay.
If there aren't any questions, the superman recommends approval of policy AC, subject to final correction for style and format.
So moved. Did you say Superman?
Yeah, you said this. You said the Superman recommends.
I hear superintendent.
Yeah.
Superman, sorry.
But you are Superman.
Listen, let me, just for the record, let everybody know I'm having tooth issues, okay? I'm struggling over here.
Okay. All right. It's
At
not a
least you're
bad
not
thing.
leaving the country tomorrow.
Yeah. But I move anyway.
Yeah. Oh.
I guess we're at the Metropolis School Board now.
I like that. Zach.
I think we've officially lost it up here, folks. So, did we ever get a second?
Second.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, I see no lights. So, Ms. Howell.
Ms. Dent,
Aye.
Mr. McGrath,
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth,
Aye.
Ms. Frank,
Nay.
Ms. Ellis,
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell,
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim,
Aye.
Dr. Tobin.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-1.
Thank you. Moving to item 7.03, first reading whistleblower protections, code GAJ.
Good evening once again. Bob Mosier, Chief Communications Officer with policy GAJ, whistleblower protections. This policy was drafted in accordance with new state law, which requires local school systems to provide an administrative complaint procedure for employees who believe they are subject of a personnel action in violation of state law. It's on first reading and we'll go up for a 30-day public comment period and then be back to you on the 4th of January.
Thank you. Ms. Dent, I see your light.
There is a clarity point that's in there that I want to make, and it's really kind of it may be a tech edit, but I'd like for the board to make that decision because it is adding the word under the first comment, the Board of Education of Anne Arundel County is committed to ensuring that protections of employees who have reasonable good faith belief that AACPS has or still is engaged in activities, in an activity, and then I would like to add the word a policy or a practice that is a violation of law, rule, or regulation.
So that is in the draft as you have it, or
Right.
as I have it.
Right. But that wasn't in the original. It's in there.
It's in there now.
I know, but when we circulate it.
Oh,
it's-
I understand. My apologies.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that there was no question about the changes that we were making. And since it came out of committee, I was just trying to follow your rules, Ms. Shawhan. It's not my rules. It's the your mentorship.
Okay. All right, so I see no other lights. So thank you, Mr. Mosher. All right, so item 7.04, FY 2023 supplemental capital budget appropriation. Dr. Bedell.
Right. Thank you, Madam President. And for this presentation, we have Mr. Stansky and his staff up here, and what the superintendent recommends approval of the FY 2023 supplemental capital budget appropriation for the upgrade various school submissions to the county executive and county council. So I'll pass it over to staff if there are questions.
Yep. Just for the record, Matt Stansky, Acting Chief Operating Officer.
Kyle Ruff, our Director of Facilities.
Yeah, it's pretty straightforward. We district received a grant for $82,000 from the Maryland Energy Administration to engage with a consultant on best practices of designing buildings to be carbon neutral. So happy to answer any questions you have.
Ms. Schallheim.
Yes. Is it just the design of new buildings or would be the retrofitting also of existing buildings to be more carbon neutral as well?
The proposal we've received from the consultant also involves retrofitting buildings.
Nice. I have to, well, I have a comment, but I'll see if anyone else has questions first and then I'll say my comment.
I see no other lights.
Okay.
Oh, Ms. Corkadell.
Just really quick. So when we go for a LEED type certification on our new buildings, isn't that part of the LEED? I mean, I'm not an active AP LEED person, but when I used to do some of the reviews in the project management capacity, I thought that this was part of it. So is this for new things above and beyond the LEED stuff? Because I thought like GWWO, I know they have a very, very thorough system, and their LEED AP is, I thought, did this. So is this I like Ms. Schallheim's question, is it for existing? Because when I saw upgrade various, I just presumed it would all be for existing because that would be part of our existing program. So is this to help pay for that,
This is
that
really,
engineering, or?
this is really a study of our whole facility inventory to determine which ones would be net zero appropriate projects for us to pursue in the future. At the same time, it would allow us to review retrofit or renovation projects where we could enhance our design standards for energy efficiency and also look at potential for solar or generation on the site.
So this is like the next step of Empower Maryland type of stuff, or going beyond the HVAC?
This is going beyond the HVAC. It's more like building envelope, looking at ways that we can enhance our lighting controls, the way that the natural light comes into the school so that we limit the amount of power that we use in the facility, and also look at how we could potentially generate power at our schools through the use of solar arrays, whether it be rooftop or whether it be canopy structures. And then looking at it on an entire portfolio basis rather than individual schools. We're going to be looking at all 126 facilities that we have in our inventory.
And if the follow-up question is, if the legislation moves forward with some of its wishes of mandate related to this category, do we know if that is going to help us in some of those ways, if some of those actually materialize as mandates in this category, or are they different things?
We continue to see the legislation move us further and further into green building, and we want to be ahead of the curve on this, and this will allow us to be in that position.
Good. Well, yeah, that's what I mean. As long as we're moving towards what I know is inevitable, I think we're in good shape. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Schallheim.
Oh, this makes me so happy. I'm just over here just clapping, and so we look at our budget every year, and in our budget, which obviously outlines all of our expenditures, and all of that good stuff, you see a line item in there for power and light that has driven me crazy for the last 4 years, because it's north of $18 million every single year, pretty much. I think it keeps ticking up as the cost per kWh ticks up. It would be amazing. This is such incredible news, because for $82,000, we can potentially find ways to save us potentially millions of dollars that we can use for other things. So yes, I've been flogging a dead horse over here about solar, but like, it could be anything. It could be controls, it could be demand response, it could be motors, it could be HVAC. Yes, I'm a first generation lead AP, so it's been a hot minute, but I'm sure I'm listing out lots of things. But it's an incredible opportunity. So I couldn't be more in support of this. I'm gleeful about this. I'm so excited, and I'm glad that we're hopefully going to pass this unanimously to get this done. Not to pre-assume anything. That's my hope. And so thank you for bringing this to me, and I can't wait to hear. Please come back, and if we do pass this and this does move forward, I would love to then at some point hear a report back on what they recommend. I would love to know and see if my favorite words in that report. Yeah, cheers. All right, thanks.
Okay, thank you. So, I'm sorry, did we have a motion?
Oh, it's moved. So moved. Yes.
Okay. All right. Seeing no more lights, Ms. Allen.
Ms. Jen? Mr. McGrath?
Aye.
Mr. Silkworth?
Aye.
Ms. Frank?
Aye.
Ms. Ellis?
Aye.
Ms. Corkadell?
Aye.
Ms. Schallheim?
Aye.
Dr. Tobin?
Aye.
Motion passes 8-0.
Thank you. And so Section 8, review items, Item 8.01, monthly financial status report and FY 2023 revenue and expenditure projections. Are there any questions? Concerns? No. All right then. Item 9.
Move to adjourn.
Second. Let's keep it over.
Do I have consensus?
You do.
All right. Good night, everyone.